how did you get started in drumming? What were your early steps?
My dad was playing drums, and I think he brought me into this local orchestra. And one thing I really like is like the basics in 4/4 with a moving accent pattern starts like this. The basic stuff is not that basic anymore.
Yeah.
But sounds freaking good and is fun to play, you know.
Can you describe what your daily practice sessions look like?
There is a difference between the practice session back in the days and now. Always have your notebook with you in the way of Apple notebook. But handwritten stuff, you know?
Handwriting rules big time. I remember one lesson at Pop Academy, and you were playing, I don't know, something out of the Pratt book for me, and you were totally obsessed about the different parts and all of that, and I said, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? So yeah, so keep going. I was interrupting. So. By the way, do you still play with your dad every now and then? Are you playing drums together? Does that happen?
It does not happen often. I have to really push him. He doesn't want.
Welcome everybody for this drum talk, and I mean, I think there is no further introduction needed for you, Anika. You have turned into a freaking legend. So I think it's totally justified to say that, and I mean the impact you have had on the more recent history of drum set playing is, I mean, without a doubt, just crazy. People from all around Planet Drum are copying your stuff. You are in demand most everywhere with your band, with your clinics and stuff. So what a career in drumming. I'm proud to know you. That's number one. Now with before we dive into some of the concepts about the course that you and the stuff that you have been shooting at Open-Minded Drumming, let's dive a little bit into your personal history. And I mean, I know some of the questions. I may also have a couple of questions that you're not prepared for, so stay tuned. At first, maybe just for all of us, give us just in a couple of sentences a little more insight into how you got into drumming. I know there was drums in your family, there was your father, but how did you get started in drumming? What were your early steps?
I mean, as you said, my dad was playing drums, and I think he brought me into this local orchestra. And that was a big thing because I really enjoyed it in the beginning. As when you are a kid, you just like start off playing with others. That's the most fun. And this is also what I try to teach, like just play with others. Doesn't matter what age, because it's the most fun you can get. And I think that's my first kind of thing I can remember, that joining this local orchestra and playing with those guys there, and there were a lot of young musicians also in the orchestra, so it was really like on the same level somehow. And then my dad had this kind of cover band thing going on, and they rehearsed in our house. So and that also this was a completely different style of music and what the orchestra did. And I joined the rehearsals, and that was also really inspiring and motivating, and also to learn other instruments, not just for the drums. So I also touched my hands a little bit on keyboard, and keyboard player handed me over his old keyboard, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, that brought me into music in general, I would say.
Excellent, very good. So tell me, what is your first and earliest memory of drumming that you have, and how old were you then?
Oh, that's actually, I have this one picture where I sit outside of the house, somewhere in the garden. It was really early in the morning. I don't know how I could sneak out as I was 3 years or 4 years old. I sneaked out of the house somehow and took the snare of my dad, which was like set up on the side in the basement, and I was like really carrying this heavy snare outside and sitting there and just smashing the snare with random shit. I don't know whatever happened. I was 3 or 4, and that was the morning call for the whole neighborhood, I guess. And I think I was like this kind of age. I was still in the kindergarten, so it must be around 4, maybe 5.
Very cool, very cool, excellent. And then later on, can you still share with the people what your early influences were in terms of bands or drummers that you would look at as your heroes or your go-to references? I mean, some of the early musicians that influenced your style in your early years, a little later then?
I mean, you know me. We had lessons as I was in that stage, I would say. But I cannot really tell that I was that much into all the drummers out there at that time. I was more into music in general. I listened a lot to music. I played along a lot to music without knowing who was playing the drums at that point. So I listened for a long time to Toto, of course, with Jeff Porcaro and Simon Phillips also on drums. And I listened a lot along the early Michael Jackson stuff. So I guess it's also Jeff on drums, and it's J.R. Robinson and some others. So, but I did not know about that. But it had a lot of impact and influence on me in my early years. So.
Very cool. And I mean, when it comes to that early version of Anika, I mean, some of the first memories that I have when you first came in for lessons was, I thought, wow, this girl, she has some extra bite to how she even plays a very simple groove. There was something to it that I missed with, I'd say, 90% of most other students. And to me, I think this is still one of the remarkable things that make you outstanding from my personal perspective. But I'm curious, what do you think, what is it from this old Anika at age of 15, 16, 18, 20, what is it of that old Anika that we still see today? Is there something of which you say, this has kind of stayed over the years?
That's a good question. I would say what stayed was definitely the energy level, and maybe like how I hit the drums in the way of like the approach to it. I think that did not change yet. Even technique and dynamic and all that stuff came in on some point, but the energy and the emotional part of it, you may not see it directly, but I feel it that it's still the same thing, like as I was a little.
Yeah, that would have actually been my guess, because I mean, you can learn a lot of technique, and you learn coordination, and you learn different styles, and you learn how to put your reading stuff together. But this fundamental, say, aspect of how your dedication towards the music and the energy you bring to the table, and the attitude of you play in a way that everyone notices. You want to be heard. When this girl plays, you want to be heard, and you don't hold back. You give it all, and you play as if there's no tomorrow. So that was always something that I totally admired you for, and still do. By the way, I'm your fan. So.
Thanks so much, Klaus. That coming from you, we never talked about such stuff, so that means a lot to me. Really.
Okay, so moving further on the timeline, would you say there was a certain turning point in your career? Was there a time when you thought, okay, now something is happening. I see a possibility of changing directions towards a professional career, and because of this and that experience, or because of this and that aspect that came into your life? Was there something like this one turning point?
Actually, I knew that I always just wanted to play the drums. I said that in several interviews already. I had to go a different path for a while, but then my band and we won back in the days. We won a band contest, and we had the chance to, like, the winners of the contest, they were chosen to attend a band camp. Mm-hmm. And Benny Kreb was one of the teachers there, and he was just starting off with his career, so he just did that Montreal thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was a teacher there, and I mean, everyone knows Benny nowadays, and he has the same approach still, and he was approaching me to, you cannot do two things really good. You know, he was like saying, basically, I have to decide if I want to stay in what I'm doing at this point, like being a preschool teacher, or like diving completely into music and give everything in this direction. And that made me thinking for almost 2 years about it, because when you start off working, you earn money and everything is going in a specific direction already. It's not easy to make the decision and a turning point in a completely different direction. And so it took me 2 years to make the decision, okay, let's go, I full power. So I entered your room and told you, I want to study music, can you help me to reach the level to apply? And so we worked on it, and then from that day on, it still took almost 4 years.
It still took time, yeah. And I remember this one scene about the buzz roll that you put, but we will not further lose any word about that. So I keep my mouth shut about the buzz roll. So, but still, during that time, I mean, you took lessons with me. I'm sure there were also other local teachers that you have been looking into. But I also understand you always were pretty disciplined and strict about your personal practicing and its structure. So what would you say about the importance of your personal practice routine and your I don't know, your self-instructing approach to some degree? Were you very strict with yourself, like, I'm going to get up at 5:30 and then I'm going to go through this and that book and da-da-da-da-da? So how was that? How would people imagine that?
It was really similar to that, yes. So because I cannot do things half, so then I start off to slide away and do different things again. So I have to make it 100% like full in or nothing. So, and as the day came where I decided, now I'm really practicing, not playing, I start off practicing, I did it in that way. I really put everything out of my schedule. I lost a lot of my friends because I didn't see them, you know, and it was exactly like this. And that was also at the time where I was studying already. So I made it to the actually first semester. And there were a lot of other stuff also happening in university. And I had to make like a way to sneak in like at 6 in the morning to practice until 9:30 when lessons start. And then I did the same in the evening again. And somehow it was long days and less sleep for 5 years or something like this.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, but finding a routine to practice was also a struggle, actually. I mean, now you have developed your routine, how you practice, and I'm happy I found my routine, but it was also kind of a path to go, and it took me also almost 3 years to figure out how to practice and how my body and my brain absorbs and works best.
Absolutely. I think it's always a matter of getting to know yourself. You have to understand what your weak spots are. You have to understand where you're good at. You have to understand how you digest certain aspects of of knowledge and skill. You have to understand what is the best time in the day for you to practice. What am I going to do if I'm not motivated to practice? Do I still practice, and to what extent? Or there's a zillion things to say about getting to know yourself and fine-tuning your own personal practicing routine. And that has a lot to do with, understanding who you are.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Now, again, back to open-minded drumming and the courses that you were shooting, and your courses with OMD are about groupings, and I should say, groupings has become something that everyone dives into. I can remember my first little journey about groupings started in somewhere in the mid-'80s, because everyone was raving about Steps Ahead, and there was one track which was called Oops. It had Steve Smith on drums, it had Mike Stern that I would later then record with, which I didn't know at that time, but I mean, there were early influences. I even brought a little book of a page of Jim, where he would look into groups of 5s and 9s and 11s, creating a 32-bar reading exercise, and this was written in 1971. I mean, I was 2 years old back then. So, so anyhow, what got you started with groupings, and what sort of approach did that? What sort of approach did you look into when you first studied that for yourself?
It's actually, we are cooking all with the same material, but the turnout of it is different and depends on what decision we make during the process. So for me, it was, I mean, as we had lessons, I always struggled with the rudimental parts. I can remember the time where I was trying to play and especially read. I had the most trouble with reading the rudiments. And you were like, okay, how is this rudiment called? What's the name of this rudiment? I was like, okay, I don't know.
I remember one lesson at Pop Academy, and you were playing, I don't know, something out of the Pratt book for me. And you were totally obsessed about the different parts and all of that. And Jesus Christ, what's going on here? So so keep going. I was interrupting. So.
No, it was like I at that time where we started working on a little bit of that material coming from the rudiment side, I was like just maybe not ready for that, because it was too much information in a written version, like the rudimental version of it, and I struggled with that. To understand it in a proper way. And as I started studying with Joost Nickel, actually, he showed me this approach of groupings, which I haven't touched in that approach or with that approach until then. So, and that clicked a lot for me. So I understood also the material we did, and that made everything way easier. And I think that was my kick-off into the world of groupings, and from then I started to understand rudiments more and more and more, and the reading part came in more and more and more. So now it is more that my playing is more, I see it more or I build it up more in the way of groupings, and I see it that the grouping is a simple thing where you can add always stuff to it. You can add stuff to it. And a rudiment is a finished product, so to speak. It has all the information already there. And I just come from the opposite position, and we meet somewhere in the middle with similar or same results. It's just a different approach to it. And in my course, I tried to work that out. I started off with the group of 4, so the course is based on the group of 4, which is the simplest way to start with. If you never touched groupings, so that's the way to go. And I also choose the 4 because the 4 leads to a lot of different things, such as polyrhythms and metric modulation. And of course, it has a lot of rudiments involved, depends on the sticking you use and the orchestration you use. So that's a great example to start off working with that approach of using basically a grouping to achieve a lot of groove-based and fill-based material.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
Would it be a good moment to combine this this great conversation with maybe some example of the groupings on drums, or
sure.
Something that we could see
Sure.
discover the secrets?
Sure. So I think everyone here is kind of familiar with a paradiddle. So let me just do that. So now I'm starting directly off with a rudiment, right? So the paradiddle is like, so which is a group of 4, because we just stay on 16th notes at this point, and so it's on the pulse. So, but the thing is, when you take that away from the natural subdivision, which is 16th notes or even 8 notes, so then it turns out as something different. It starts to get more interesting maybe, or gets a specific flavor to a groove, or turns out as a polyrhythm, or you can use it as metric modulation. So maybe let's do it in a 16th triplet or 6/8 setting, like. So that's the group of 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now, if you have achieved the feeling of where the accents are placed within the 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You already hear a kind of a polyrhythm, right? Now you can build on that. So I build a groove on that and take it from a paradiddle sticking to a right-hand ostinato. Ah, no, that was a shuffle. So let's do it with the full groove. So that could be the new pulse as well. Maybe let me try to play it and keeping the pulse here, the original, so that you can see and hear what's happening. So that's the group of 4, which is basically, you all know that from a regular groove, and this is like where the modulation is going. Like it takes like a 6/4 setting basically, and a 6/8 setting. So that's a rough example, a really quick example. And I'm using that material also for the quintuplet stuff. Let's come back.
Yeah, let's show some more.
Yeah, the quintuplets would be then a regular quintuplet groove with a hi-hat on the 1, the 3rd, and the 4th. And now I'm getting like the hi-hat and the 4-note setting.
Very cool.
So that's, yeah, same thing if you understand the group of 4. So you can just do the same stuff what you do in a basic setting, 4/4, bringing it into different subdivisions, and then it comes to very interesting options like with the hi-hat or even for fills.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the cool thing which you've shown us here and which is also covered in the course is that it doesn't absolutely take rocket science like ingredients to create something really cool. You can start with very simple things. And once you dive into the opportunities and further applications and different ways of how you can structure the grouping in different settings, be it in different time signatures or be it in different levels of subdivision, you can come up with something really cool. And also what I like about this course and the way how you present it is, I mean, everyone can use it, so it's just a tool to improve your time, your sense for rhythm, your solid pulse, but you can also develop interesting vocabulary out of it. It can be both. I mean, you can just practice how strong you go with your rhythmic understanding, but you can also make it really cool vocabulary, which is, I mean, contemporary drum set stuff in the style of what you do, which is pretty hip, I should say.
I mean, yeah, what I did in this course is also I showed a lot of examples on the pad. So you can practice a lot of material just like in a hotel room, on the couch while watching a Netflix show or whatever. And then sitting down on the drums and just try to get it flowing already. And getting like the orchestration going and finding melodies with it. And it's also, it starts off really basic in the first chapter, actually, because I'm explaining kind of the accent patterns. But also I want to show you a thing. What I really like is because we always say, yeah, the basics are important, but then when it comes really to push the basics to the next level, then I realized that still on my own that there are some gaps and some like, maybe I should practice my basics a little bit here and there, you know? And one thing I really like is like the basics in 4/4 with a moving accent pattern starts like this. Super simple. So now let's take it to like taking the accent to the kick and filling in with the hands and do the alternating hands. So that's the first thing. And now we have also options to accenting. You know, so basic stuff, but it can sound really interesting when, for example, now in this case, the speed comes in, or like having like different orchestrations going. And then the basic stuff is not that basic anymore,
Yeah.
but sounds freaking good and is fun to play, you know?
It absolutely is. And as I always say, simple is not easy. That's
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
really simple. Just says the structure of it is not super complex, but who says it's easy to execute? Oftentimes, simple is just not easy. That's an important
Exactly.
takeaway.
It's hard, actually. Yeah,
Very
totally.
cool. So I think a lot of the questions that people have been submitting in the preparation of this session also aim towards structure in practicing and finding guidance in their own path in drumming and in music. So so maybe let's dive a little bit into that question and answer part. So. So I think some of it has already been talked about, but here's, for instance, here's Shay. I'm not sure if Shay is in the meeting here. Shay, where are you? Get out of here! Come on. So Shay was asking, Anika, can you describe what your daily practice sessions look like?
Okay, that is my question for you. Is it actually, okay, I cannot do questions to you. But there is a difference between the practice session back in the days and now. Because practice sessions back in the day were way more like structured, like with a written out plan of what my task is for the day. And I had to do that to keep going and, you know, pushing myself. Today, it's more that actually, do I have that here? Have that.
Come on, where is it?
Oh, let me get that. 1 second, guys. I will show you something.
Absolutely, bring it on. Bring it on. So she's diving into the shelves, into the secret vault of ideas.
My practice session is all in here.
There you go, huh?
So this is my practice material. It's a thick book in the meanwhile, but it covers a lot of stuff I'm working on, from very basics to more complex things. And I learned something from you, Klaus. Always have your notebook with you in the way of Apple notebook. But handwritten stuff, you know?
Handwriting rules big time, I tell you.
Yeah, so this is it's also thick and full of things I'm working on. And it's like, basically, this is material I'm working on, and this is the ideas I get out of that.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
yeah, because when you practice, or when I practice, I have a lot of new ideas coming up, and when I write them down, I can leave them and can continue practicing. So, and this is how it is. I have my book. I made thoughts at some point what I want to work on, and so I dive into it, and I choose day by day what I want to do, and usually I stay on the same topic for some days or a week or even longer, and then I switch. And sessions are also like not like back in the day. I had 5 hours, 6 hours sessions over the day. In the meanwhile, my schedule doesn't allow that anymore, unfortunately. So I have like 2-3 hours max. Sometimes I have no hour, and sometimes I have more. And it's not regular anymore. But with that handout, I'm always prepared to start off wherever I am. So it includes also pad stuff, and it includes drum set stuff. So it doesn't matter where I am, I can just dive into my personal topics. So this is how the session looks like now.
Very good. And I mean, I think that the big takeaway, Shay, for you is get this notebook, get a pen, that notebook and that pen goes with you most everywhere you go. And whenever you have an idea, you just put it in the freaking book. And next time you practice, you got it all on paper. So here's a little question from me. What makes you decide if you leave a certain topic and you switch to something else?
Good question. So usually I need to have the feeling that I internalized, if it's a new thing, that I internalized it a little bit. It's not that I work on something until it's completely fluid, because sometimes stuff takes a year or even longer. But for me, it's more the process of getting it, approaching it step by step. And sometimes it comes to a point where I think, okay, now I just move on because I leave it. I don't enjoy it maybe that much anymore when I've worked for 2 weeks on it. And sometimes I feel that it cannot go further with it because it needs to be developed, and I have to do something different in between to just leave it a little bit. It's more like that I always listen to my body and to my mind to make this decision, kind of.
Does it happen that when you notice, geez, I'm stuck with something, it's not improving, does it happen that you put it aside and then you get back to it a couple of weeks later?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Even years later.
Even years later? Interesting. Yeah. Okay, very cool. Okay, so another question we have here from Julian. So what does your composing process look like these days?
Interesting. My composing process changed over the years, definitely. So I would say the first 2 albums I wrote were more based and focused on what's happening on drums, because a lot of songs were written on a drum track first. So I created the layout of drum ideas I had, and I built the music around that. But with the last EP and the new album especially, it changed a lot, and it was more that I started off writing from a harmony instrument, and then I made thoughts what to do with the drums. And it's a completely different style of writing. It still involves stuff, so it's not just basic grooves. It's still like the passion is still there for complex stuff, but it's a different way of how it comes out. And I can hear totally the difference of a track, which, for example, is Synergy, one of my tracks, which started on the drums. It is like heavy written in this direction, and there is no chance also to do something different, because it's all polyrhythms and it has to be played like this, and it has to be so. And I wanted to have more improvisational parts in my music, especially when we play stuff live. And this is why I changed my process of writing, because when I write here, then it's all checked out stuff, and it's like for some reason I cannot let the room for more improvisation. So, but when I start writing from a harmony instrument, I have a different point of view on the song, on the music, and I can have this freedom.
I got it. Interesting. Now, Simon, in terms of questions that have been coming up in the chat, would you like to throw some of these in? I didn't follow the chat all the time, but is there something of which you would say, okay, this or that is something...
Maybe ask another quick question, and I'm gonna quickly read through again to find 1 or 2, and then maybe we'll jump into some few live questions.
Okay.
All right.
So I have one thing here, and awesome. it's actually a part of a question that someone by the name of Pa-Lo or Pa-Io, I'm not sure if that's an L or an I, was asking. What do you consider the most important thing when playing a drum solo? Now, I'm especially curious about the answer for that question, because it happens every now and then that I play a drum solo. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, wow. I always say I don't play drum solos.
I know.
Yeah. But I would say I start really to enjoy to solo over a vamp kind of thing. And my approach on that take is usually that I try to tell a story. It's not always easy because it's always different and you feel different day by day. It's a different vibe. Sometimes you feel more energetic and you really have to make it like calm down and just build it up, And then the other day you feel tired and you have to push yourself to come to the point and whatever. But that's the thing, and that's also the fun part of it. And I try to tell a story. And usually when I solo over vamp, I know the tempo, I know the feeling. So I know what I can do in a specific tempo and in a specific feeling, and I know what I shouldn't do. And so I have some building blocks to build on a solo in this direction. But it's like a lot of improvisation, and this is what I love in the meanwhile. I can really enjoy that.
Okay,
yeah.
Beautiful. We at some point we should maybe try putting together some solo act together and seeing how we put the puzzles together. That would be fun. I still have this one chart over there with key cornerstones of Radak Tagwacht that you could play as a groove and I could play the rudimental part. I got ideas for that, but we lost it at some point. I just rediscovered it these days when I was cleaning up the basement here. So who knows?
We could also sing Merry Christmas along to it as a challenge.
All right.
Awesome. So I managed to grab a few questions from the chat in the meantime. So I'm just going to quickly address them and see where it goes. The first one is, was Claus your first drum teacher? And if so, what can you still remember? Or if you can still remember the very first lesson?
I mean, Claus and I are like grand cousin kind of thing, like it's family kind of, but he was not my first teacher. It would have been better, maybe, I don't know. But I started off in the music school. The teacher was great teacher, but it was back in the days where music schools were like really like traditional and kind of boring. So I started as I was 7 and or six or seven in a music school where I had to play the snare drum for almost 2 years and just trying to read, and so, and it was super boring. I was so happy that my dad taught me a couple of things at that point. And as I was 10, I got some private lessons from a local drummer, and he taught me more in the way of preparing myself for the orchestra. So it was also like marching stuff a little bit, but also like grooves, because I wanted to learn some Michael Jackson stuff. And and then as I turned 17 or 18, I think I was still 17 as I joined Claus' lesson. Yeah.
And by the way, do you still play with your dad every now and then? Are you playing drums together? Does that happen?
It does not happen often. I have to really push him. He doesn't want. He's still playing in the orchestra sometimes. He's usually playing the trumpet, but he also takes over sometimes if there is no drummer available. But when I say, let's go, and he's like, no. I don't know.
Very cool. Very
awesome. Cool. Okay, let's go for a few more quickly, and then we'll maybe ask somebody to ask the live question. So quickly, Anika, how were you able to do both, studying and practicing? And the person is saying, when I'm practicing, I'm completely spent afterwards. What were your secrets to do both things from the point of view of conserving focus, energy, and mental pool?
It's a good question, because as I started off like really practicing, I felt like after 30 minutes I was like already like, that's it. And I set myself the goal of having 2-hour session. And after 30 minutes I was done already, because it is a completely different focus, totally. And it's really tiring in the beginning if you're not used to it. So you have to build stamina in this direction as well. And so you can always combine it. So I played a lot along loops to have the feeling that I still play, but I was practicing specific material with it, not just jamming or something. And that really helped me to make like longer sessions, and on some point it was no problem to do 4 or 5 hours anymore. But yeah, there is a difference between just putting music on and playing, and maybe stop here and there and just trying a little bit, and working on something you cannot do correctly, good, great, or at all. Working on your struggles and weaknesses is a different thing than just playing and having fun.
That can really hurt big time. So so that's something which we often see in lesson scenarios, that there is, I mean, not just some guidance needed in terms of what to do and what not to do on the instrument, but also guiding and coaching the people in terms of, okay, stay on it, stay focused, do this, don't do that, I'm with you, we're practicing together, we're in this together, keep going, and you just try to push your student further, and just structuring a routine in a way, and teaching yourself in a way that you learn this. It's really something that needs to be learned. You need to educate yourself towards that, and that is quite an important accomplishment before you can make certain achievements and before you're gonna get anywhere, I think, really.
Yeah, and overcome the struggles basically every time you sit there and trying to practice something. It's like frustration over and over, struggles over and over, and you have to overcome it every time, every day, again and again. And I can understand if people just say, I quit. I can, but for me, there were no chance. I had to overcome it because I loved it so much. And it's like, I always say, it's practicing, like really practicing is like reading a book or watching a Netflix series. You know, if you start off, it's almost addicting. In the beginning, you need to catch the story and you get into it a little bit. And as soon as you are in, you always want to know what's the next thing, what's happening next. And it's the same here. When you start off with a topic and you get a little bit, you have your first like nice moments with it, and then it's like addicting. Then it's also a fun thing.
Correct. It takes some time until it gets some sort of momentum that drives you further to the next stage of the adventure.
Absolutely.
And it's just so exciting to see how passionate you are still about that. And I can totally hear this and understand this, because I still notice my own passion about playing drums, and all of a sudden you look at what the time is and you figure, Jesus Christ, I'm sitting here since 3 hours and I didn't even notice. I was just practicing out of my stupid little black book, and people then ask you, are you still practicing? I said, yeah, I'm practicing. I'm enjoying it more than ever, and it's just I don't always find the time to do it to the extent that I would like to. So that's the interesting part. So it's totally cool to notice that you are just in that same rabbit hole. It's really that.
That's awesome. Maybe let's ask some of our participants here. Let's say we've got time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. Maybe just raise your virtual hand so I can see you and ask you to unmute to ask the question. And in the meantime, I'm just going to ask quickly last one from the chat. Anika, how do you like to tune your toms? And also I'm going to combine another one. You used to tilt your cymbals away from you. And the question is, why did you do that?
Yeah, actually, the tilted cymbals, I stopped doing this because I raised the cymbals up. You can see that maybe that's really, really high, actually. But with the years, my technique always is evolving and changing, kind of, and developing. So I came back to the more regular setting in just higher cymbals, and I did the tilted cymbals because I had the cymbals super low. So when you see all the videos, they were super low, and it was just easier to play them in this direction. And yeah, so things always move on and change a little bit. And right now I just have like a 10-inch tom and a 18-inch tom actually here, which is a nice combo. And I have like a timbale here. So you cannot see this, but you can hear the timbale. Tom, some bongos, and an 18-inch floor tom. And it's not really tuned, it's a little bit detuned because the room here is getting cold and hot and cold and hot. But usually I just tune it in the way of, I never use a tuning bot or something, I just do it by ear. I don't have any specific tone to tune at. This is just in the studio, I just take a note out of the song and maybe tune it a little bit in this direction. But usually it's like, you just have to do dun, dun, dun. That's it. Or better said, dun, dun, dun.
In our case.
Okay, let's jump quickly to the some of the live questions. So I'm going to ask to unmute Maxime.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I don't have electricity now, so I'm using my phone. And my question is, Anika, when you reach certain level of your mastery or certain plateau, how did you manage to go to the next level? What steps did you take? Maybe did you have some struggles with certain stages in your playing?
Yeah, thanks. Great question, because a lot of people out there thinking that they see the perfect drummer playing live, everything is perfect and great skills, and people think that those drummers don't struggle at all with anything. So that's not true. What you see live is just like the abilities. What you don't see is what's not happening, what's not working, because simply it's not shown on stage. And of course, when I sit here in this room practicing, I struggle with a lot of things. And there's always a next level to reach. And sometimes you have to step back until the basics, the foundation, to make the next move, the next level. And the thing is, when you really practice, this is why I have my little notebook here. I get so many ideas what to do next with that material. So there is always, my mind is always a step ahead already. Even I'm not able to do what I'm doing right now, what I'm practicing, I can see the next level. And this is just happening when I'm practicing myself. It's harder to see when I watch someone play, because it's just like a different style, or it's like a different individual orchestration style, or like in Claus' direction, you have also this kind of unique playing style with all the footwork and the independence and stuff. And so it's always like when I sit down on my own material, I can see the next step for myself. And it's inspirational to watch others, but the most ideas I get always when I sit here and practice. So maybe.
Awesome. Let's move on quickly for another question, this time from Gino.
So I have two questions, perhaps. On the Paradiddle example that you did when you changed the subdivision, were the accents and the kick, was the relationship a 2/3 polyrhythm?
Yeah, it's actually a 3/2 thing, which or 3 against 2. Yeah, that was.
And the second one, when you did the moving accent example with the kick and the 3 snares, were you just basically changing the subdivision to kind of make it faster?
No, it was simply 16th notes speeding up till fast, 30 seconds, whatever. It was still.
I see.
Yeah, the kick basically is on the pulse.
Awesome. Great question. Let's move on quickly to Himi.
I struggle sometimes by certain things regarding timing. One thing, what someone realized when we were recording, always my snare, the 2 on the snare after breaks or fills, is always too early. My question for you is, did you realize something similar like this after years of playing? And did you do anything against it, or do you have your timing from all your exercises, or did you do certain timing exercises all the time, or you did for a while? You know what I mean?
Totally, totally. Timing is a thing you always can practice, and I consider this as my weakness part in my playing, because I practiced almost 20 years without touching a metronome, so I feel I have to still work on it really like a lot. And so yeah, I have practice sessions still going on with click tracks, with less click information, to have a lot of gap, to especially doing that material, like playing fill and see if I can come back to the one precisely. Or like I have like clicks with a lot of information to practice flow and see if my strokes are even when I'm playing really fast. Then I have like practice sessions where I have a click pattern, which can be anything. It can be a clave pattern, clicking, which I program, or any random thing where I try to fill in and play grooves and match the strokes, or even take those clicks as hits to fill in between those hits, and see if I can manage that. So there's different ways to practice on that, and I definitely can agree with you. I had also like this issue, sometimes still have, but honestly, when I play live and it's full energy on, I don't mind, especially with the band. You know, it's like moving forth and back, like in chorus parts and verse parts, slowing down, speeding up a bit. It's more like important when you have like a session going on, a studio session, and of course, in general, for the own personal feeling, you always want to improve there, and it's just good, you know.
Okay, yeah, great.
Awesome. Let's go for the last question from Schlagzeug Video Coach. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the, let's call the username, but if you could just unmute yourself and go for the question.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, my name's Jochen. Very cool. The last question, thank you. I want to ask Anika about her left hand technique, because I think it's kind of like playing in the drum on the backbeat, which is maybe called like dead stroke or mute stroke. And I find it very interesting because you can't find really much information about this in the whole internet, I guess. So my question would be, how did you come up with that? Why do you do it? And how maybe to start something like this?
Maybe let me just like show everyone what we're talking about for a second. I think, can you see this? I'll try to manage it. I'm doing it a little bit outside of the center. Okay, so. So yeah, it's actually, I'm doing this when I feel the groove and the song needs energy. And it's more a feeling as maybe a sound result, because sure, I'm dampening kind of the drum head a little bit, but usually I have a cowbell on my snare, so there is not much resonance anyways. It's more like a feeling, actually, to put like the energy into the drum. It's the opposite what you usually do. You want to have a resonant drum and you want to have a tone, but for me it's more like this super short. I play also then in this direction, super short notes, or just thick, like super heavy.
And the grip is more like in the back of the hand, little finger hold, and forearm motion.
Yes, it's more like this. It also is because I'm blocking my hand kind of, so I do the stroke and then my hand stucks on this position to make sure that the rim shot, for example, is always the same. I'm not doing this kind of thing, so it's always this kind of whip motion. And then to not getting an issue in my wrist, I let loose a little bit with that grip. So, and this is when you see this happening. You know? Yeah, but this is, I never really practiced that kind of death stroke. It just happened, and I can remember that once in a session with Claus, as I was 20 or something, we talked about this, and I was like, I don't know, what is this, what I'm doing? It looks different on your side, and you, Claus, we were, yeah, maybe it's just the way how you play the snare. I can remember that. So, yeah, maybe it's just how I play the snare. Thank you guys for joining. There were a lot of people here in the room, and I hope I could give a little bit of inspiration for your own playing, practicing, your musical journey, whatever. So yeah, and I hope we see us in the course. I hope you can check that out a little bit. If you signed up with an account, you can check a little bit of that. So yeah, thanks for being here, for your time, and hope we see us next time.
Great. Yeah. So to everyone out there, we're just passionate about drumming, and it's great to it's great to have you in this meeting here, Anika, to share your passion for the drums and to see a little bit of your journey. And we're excited to where this journey is still gonna go. And I'm looking forward to more mutual adventures with the two of us next year. It seems there might be quite some in Italy and Greece. So stay tuned. There's more things coming up. Check out our websites with AnikaNilles.com, ClausHessler.com, OpenMindedDrumming.com, obviously. And again, we are passionate about education, and we are really about coaching and guiding and mentoring you in a way which is as close to as an in-person lesson as you can possibly imagine from online education. This is really the mission, non-redundant, legit stuff of cut out all the bullshit and really go straight to the heart of the matter, okay? That is what we're about. Thanks, everyone.